Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. With the end of 2016 drawing near, I thought I would take a moment to step back from the standard fare of industry analyses and games reviews to do something that I haven't had a chance to do very much of this year. And that is to talk about an aspect of video games coming up in 2017 that I am actually excited about. Now, I'm not one to typically allow fandom to get the better of me. As a gaming critic, to do so would be completely anathema to the tenets by which my channel was founded, and that many of you have become accustomed to and even expect. However, even I have to succumb to my own mortality and admit that even I get excited about some games. I'm speaking, of course, about the upcoming releases of not one, but two new Battletech games. The first is the Harebrained Schemes turn-based game Battletech that is set to move into beta in Q1 of 2017. Featuring a full story-driven campaign and PvP multiplayer, this is the first taste of a true Battletech game since the aborted attempt at a Mechwarrior title back in 2009 by Smith & Tinker that ended up being mired in a legal battle and unfortunately faced cancellation. The second is the recent announcement of Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries by Piranha Games, slated for a 2018 release. And while the creators of the abysmal Twitch shooter that is Mechwarrior Online lack the pedigree to handle a true simulator experience that a Mechwarrior game should be, it is heartening to see a resurgence of this beloved franchise that has failed to see a decent PC game since Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries was released nearly 15 years ago in 2002. Now, to offer some insight into exactly why I am so excited to see these games come out, we'll actually need to discuss the lore briefly. I say briefly. The Battletech universe touts one of the richest and most detailed histories in gaming to this day. Spanning hundreds of years, there are untold stories that flesh out the lore's expansive timeline and is far too detailed to do so here in any form of complete fashion. But for those of you that are uninitiated in the world of Battletech, let me fill you in with the classic starting line. Welcome to the Inner Sphere, a region of space surrounding Earth to a radius of approximately 500 light years, or roughly 1/4 the total size of my ego. Colonization of the Inner Sphere started in the year 2108 when the Terran Alliance launched its first manned faster-than-light mission. Expansion occurred rapidly after that, and in the year 2271, the first of the Great Houses, the Free Worlds League, united under the banner of House Merrick. 40 years later saw the founding of the Terran hegemony under House Cameron. And then, of course, following over the course of the next 50 or so years, the remainder of the Great Houses were formed. The Federated Sons under House Davion, ostensibly the largest and most powerful of the Great Houses, and touting a very British heritage. The Dragonis Combine under House Kurita, holding up the traditions of Bushido. House Kurita is generally viewed as having a great sense of honor, naturally. The Lyran Commonwealth, formed under House Steiner, showing off German ingenuity at its finest. And finally, the Capellan Confederation under House Liao, the smallest of the Great Houses, and generally viewed as the ever-present underdog and everyone's whipping boy. Now, shortly after the Great Houses were founded, the Age of War began. And of course, during that time, the greatest war machine ever developed by man was created, the Battletech. Colossal bipedal war machines of destruction capable of incinerating an entire village with a single alpha strike. After employing these machines of extreme destruction for over 200 years, the Great Houses forged a peace and came together under the banner of the Star League, which heralded an unprecedented level of peace and prosperity for mankind that lasted for a quarter of a millennia, until, fatefully, one day Stefan Amaris assassinated Richard Davion, the ruler of the Federated Sons. Amaris seized control of the Star League, as any good dictators want to do. However, during that time, the vaunted General Kerensky, leader of the Star League's military forces, put the coup instigated by Amaris down in record time, but in the doing so, destabilized the Star League to the point where the feudal houses broke away and war once again reigned supreme in the Inner Sphere. Repulsed by the selfish actions of the Great Houses shortly before war broke out, Kerensky took an unbelievable 80% of the Inner Sphere's military forces with him and fucked off for uncharted space in the hopes of creating a utopia free of the greed and machinations of the Great Houses. Fast forward another expanse of time, the Inner Sphere suddenly found itself under assault by a new enemy, sporting mechs and weapons far more advanced than their own. Yes, folks, I'm talking about the clans. Clan Jade Falcon, Clan Ghost Bear, Clan Smoke Jaguar, Clan Wolf, and nearly 20 other clans of varying degrees of batshit craziness cut a wide swath through the Inner Sphere with no warning whatsoever. The great houses, of course, responded in force, throwing their numerically superior but technologically inferior regiments of battle mechs against this newfound threat with wild abandon. Losing repeated engagements, the great houses dug in and gave it their all. And during the course of the conflict, it was eventually revealed that the clans were descended from General Kerensky himself. In response to this new threat, the great houses banded together and the new Star League was born. Now, of course, that is, believe it or not, only the most cursory of lore drops, and the story most certainly doesn't end there. There are still gargantuan amounts of lore being left out or skipped over entirely, such as uniting of the Lyran Commonwealth and Federated Sons through marriage and the subsequent elimination of House Liao at the hands of Hans Davion, or the complete erasure of Clan Smoke Jaguar at the hands of the Star League forces led by Hans Davion and Katrina Steiner's son, Victor Steiner Davion, not to mention the Word of Blake, the Jihad, or the Dark Age. And this was simply an exceptionally cursory recitation of the core narrative on its own. There's simply so much lore and fantastic stories to be had in the Battletech universe that I actually find it as engrossing as Star Trek or Star Wars. Actually, more so. And so it was, after immersing myself in the lore so immensely, reading novel after novel of the Battletech universe, I was introduced to my first Mechwarrior video games. My favorite, of course, being Mechwarrior 2, followed by Mechwarrior 4 and Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries. Mechwarrior 4 being my first introduction to online PvP gaming via the MSN Zone, a god-awful multiplayer matchmaking system that introduced me to literally hundreds of like-minded gamers. I found myself even joining a league. I was a member of Peacemaker Corps playing in the Vengeance League, and it was some of the most addictive gameplay I've ever experienced in my adult life. Many younger gamers probably have never experienced a simulation game like Mechwarrior 4 before, and it's possible that you may never get to. Oh, sure, there's Mechwarrior Online, but the game is very much a Twitch shooter and not at all indicative of the Mechwarrior gaming experience that had gotten so many thousands of people engrossed over the course of several years. Hell, one of my fondest memories is the fear and, dare I say, very real dread that players from other guilds experienced when they found out that I was trotting out my long-range loadout Madcap Mark II, sporting a devastating amount of damage per volley and a surprising amount of armor that could soak up tons of counterstrikes. In the early days of Mechwarrior 4, before Mercenaries came out, it was a 95-ton dealer of death so fearsome that some people flat-out refused to play against it, and many others sought to replicate the loadout that I had created and failed miserably. Plus, the games, as I said, were very much a simulator. The controls were slow and deliberate, much like one would expect a tank to be. There were no twitch shooting mechanics to be found in those games. The reticle itself was insanely large compared to modern first-person games. Why? Well, because they had to be. Because the mechs in those games fired off so many goddamn weapons at once and dealt such awesome damage that one simply needed to point in the general direction of a mountain, depress the trigger on your joystick, yes, I said joystick, and watch that mountain disappear in a hellstorm of fiery destruction the likes of which this world is seldom seen. A game where you wanted to go out and drop insane amounts of money on a force feedback joystick that rarely, if ever, needed calibrating and was sturdy enough to stand up to your punishing ministrations as your body thought that by twisting the stick even harder, it would get your mech to pivot its torso just a few degrees faster before you ended up catching 5 ER large lasers to the center torso, leaving you weaponless and with your CT crit. That type of white-knuckle gameplay I don't really see often in the world anymore, and to me it is kind of a shame. And it's those type of experiences that you're like your MRM boat Masakari tossing a Daishi flat onto its 100-ton ass in an inter-city brawl that made Mechwarrior 4 but one more reason that Battletech was and is such a compelling genre, and one that I wait for with bated breath for its return. And now, with the Battletech turn-based game mere months away, I for one believe that it can't get here fast enough. That said, if Harebrained Schemes fucks this game up, I will be one of the first ones to tear the game to shreds and leave its mech cockpit mounted to a PPC barrel on my front lawn as a warning to any other games developers that would dare besmirch my beloved franchise. Conversely, if they do well, I'll be one of the first ones to sing its praises. Of course, when I do, it will most certainly not be an objective review, but sometimes passion can be a powerful motivator. Also, if anyone's interested in the card game or the amazing tabletop RPG, you can take a look at the game that yours truly GM'd over at AP Gaming Reels channel, or you can also take a look at the Rageaholics Introduction to Battletech, links to both in the description down below. Also, when you do go there, don't forget to leave a comment saying SidAlpha sent you. Of course, Razorfist will have no idea what in the hell you're talking about, but it sounds like a good bit of fun to me, so go do it for me, guys, as a favor. And while you're at it, if you yourself are a Mechwarrior fan, leave a comment down below. Tell us about your most favorite battle or encounter, whether you're a fan of the card game, tabletop RPG, or the video game, or all the above. I shared one of my passions. Feel free to do the same. After all, one can never have too much Battletech. So don't forget to like, comment, share, and do all the other things. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. Once again, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.